Hi, welcome back to Bride Society. I'm Laura and this is Rebecca.
Today we are talking about how to maybe modernise wedding traditions. So traditions are great for making something feel like something. So Christmas, what's Christmas without its traditions, right? And weddings are much the same, but maybe there are some that you might want to keep and some you want to throw away and some you just want to put a new twist on. So we're here today with some ideas on how to do just that.
So the first tradition we're going to modernise is the spending the night apart. So traditionally you wouldn't see your other half from the night before the wedding until you appear, if you're the bride, walking down the aisle when you're actually going into your wedding ceremony. But who says you have to do this? Why can't you spend the night, morning together? So you can either just, if you're staying at home, be together overnight and then separate in the morning if you do want to kind of get ready separately, or you could just get ready together.
Yes, indeed. In fact, this is one I did that twist on as well. Yeah, we stayed together the night before because I was like, I'm going to sleep better. And yeah, on a night where you might not, and so that's what I did. So another tradition, sort of having that big reveal moment as you're walking down the aisle, so that being the first time you see each other, so kind of following on from the last one. Obviously, as we just said, you can get ready together, so obviously that moment doesn't happen in the same way, but a way you could kind of also build on that if you were getting ready separately is maybe doing what they call a first look. So this is, I think, kind of more of an American thing that's started to come over here and become quite popular, where you and your partner have the sort of special moment, just the two of you prior to the ceremony. It's usually a photo opportunity as well. Guess it doesn't have to be, but yeah, where it's just the two of you and you can have that moment caught on camera where you first see each other, just the two of you. So it's maybe more of an intimate moment rather than in front of everybody, if that's something you're keen on.
Now, one that is probably quite a big tradition that people aren't so keen on, maybe, is the term being given away. So if you're the bride, traditionally your father would walk you down the aisle to give you away. Now obviously you're not your father's property, so we're getting rid of that terminology for a start and changing it, rephrasing it, you're walking down the aisle. Now this may still be with kind of father of the bride, you might want to continue that tradition, but there's no giving away involved.
Yes. And building on from that, I think being given away or walked down the aisle by your father, well, of course, that may not be possible. It doesn't have to be your father, you know. You can go it alone. You can have both parents walking you all the way, half of the way, doing the other half by yourself. And if you've got separate, like, you could have quite a crowd walking down the aisle all together, or even a close friend, or if you've already got kids, maybe that's a really nice way to include them and walk down the aisle with them. There's just so many different ways to do that bit. You can walk in together, you can both already be there, you can have both walk in and have your moment. So yeah, lots of different ways to do that.
And who says you even have to walk down an aisle? You don't have to have the traditional aisle in between or your guests. You might have the seating arranged in a circle, so you might already be there in the middle. You might have kind of sofas and just relaxed seating. You might not want to do the whole sides thing, so traditionally one partner's family and friends would sit on one side of the ceremony and the other would be sit on the other side, but you probably want to mix that up and everybody sit everywhere. Especially, there's often quite an imbalance as well, potentially, with kind of sizes of families maybe invited, so to avoid that, just everyone sit wherever they want.
And wearing a white wedding dress, if you're a bride watching this, you don't have to. Great if you do that. That's still a wonderful thing. But there are other options. You can get maybe still something that looks like a traditional bridal dress, but in a colour, like that maybe feels more like you. Or indeed not a dress at all. It could be a tailor-made suit or a jumpsuit, or there's bridal separates, which has become quite a popular thing in the last year or two. And if you don't know what that is, it's sort of where you have like a top or a skirt or trousers that are sort of separate from each other, kind of mixing and matching and things. So yeah, lots of different possibilities to make things feel more like you. And that applies to footwear as well.
Yeah.
Like, if you're not someone that likes teetering around in high heels, like, you don't have to. Or you can change at some point in the day. People wear like white Converse and trainers or pumps, yeah, you don't I suppose it's just this, don't feel like you have to be forced into doing certain things.
Like having a wedding party, for example. So traditionally, often there would be bridesmaids and maybe groomsmen and ushers, but you don't have to have a wedding party, especially if you've got maybe like a large group of friends who you'd struggle to pick out maybe a few people of, and if your budget doesn't quite allow all the things you might want to pay for them.
Yeah, this was me.
Just don't have some. You could, if you do want to pick out some specific people to make them feel a bit more included in the wedding, you can maybe give specific roles to some people that aren't, where you don't have to maybe buy a bridesmaid dress for them, but they still feel as though they're part of
it, included and special, like made special.
Yeah.
And actually also what I did, because as I just noted, this was the situation that I kind of modernised, but because I still wanted to kind of give a nod, I gave some people like corsages as well, that were kind of given out at the start of the ceremony, so it was kind of a way of doing something, but that wasn't quite as expensive for the volume of people as well. Sorry, you go ahead.
It's fine. And who says if you're having bridesmaids, for example, who says they all have to be girls? So nowadays, lots of people have friends of both genders. Why are you limited on just having like females in the bridesmaids and males for the groomsmen? You can have whoever you want standing by your side if you do go down the wedding party route.
Yeah. My husband had a best woman.
Yeah. So just forget about gender roles. Just have who you want next to you on your big day.
Yeah. And your mate of honour, or say best woman. Yeah. Do it your way. Who cares? Like, you're the one that cares the most, right? So do it your way and include your people. Yeah. So having a registrar or church official, vicar, priest, or whatever, that's officiating your wedding. Now, to make a wedding legal, you do need those things, but you don't necessarily have to do it in the traditional way. So you can have a celebrant do your ceremony, or have a family member, someone that means something that's is good at presenting, standing in front of people, and to make it that bit more personal. And you can just do the sort of legal part separate. So you can maybe do the registry office thing the day before, the day after, another time, and then sort of stage the wedding with the celebrant and all that kind of thing on the day, if you want to kind of have a bit more flexibility and control over the content.
And moving on to traditional vows. So very traditionally, part of the vows would be, if a bride is getting married, to love, honour and obey their husband. Now I think that's less common nowadays.
It's given as an optional line.
So that's not something you have to have, but there are certain lines, vows that you do have to say to become legally married. But that's not to say you can't personalise the rest of them and write some of your own vows, just to personalise the ceremony a little bit if you're not going down the route of kind of celebrant or family friend in like a non-legal wedding. In the legal bit, you can still tweak with it a bit to make it a bit more personal.
Yeah, there's those set lines, but then we did our a whole bit of our own as well. But yeah, because celebrating, you don't even need to do those lines. You can just do the whatever you want. The top table. So, at least in the UK, obviously all these traditions are kind of based on UK weddings. We should have said that at the top, I suppose. But yes, we have a top table with like the core wedding party in it. So the bride, groom, parents, bridesmaids, etc., groomsmen, or whatever combination you've got. So you don't necessarily need a top table. Maybe you're dealing with some family politics, some like sort of divorces and things that are making it tricky. You don't need a top table. So like for example, we had a sweetheart table, so a table just for the two of you, which can be quite nice for just some one-on-one time, like during the day. Although we didn't actually spend much time sat at that table,
no.
We were mingling. But it also gives you the opportunity to do that, because I think if you were sat at a top table with people, you maybe feel you couldn't get up and leave them in the same way. You could also have if you were still having your wedding party in the more traditional sense, you could maybe get those people to maybe host a table around the room, spread people through that way, or even just have like long tables rather than the sort of traditional round ones everywhere, so it's sort of more
you're all in it together.
Yeah.
And speeches. So again, traditionally there are 2 or 3 people who would do a speech. So you'd have the groom, best man, and father of the bride. Is that right?
Yes, in this country. Yes, the women do not speak in this country.
But they can.
They can, in case you hadn't noticed.
Yeah. So do what you want for speeches.
Yeah.
If you're the bride watching and you want to give a speech yourself, go for it.
I did. I've just realised doing this video how many so I did modernise, and without really even thinking about it. So there we go. I can advocate for it.
If you're having a maid of honour, they might want to do one. I think that's quite popular in America.
Yeah.
That's kind of traditional there already. But you might want to open it up to all of your guests. Now, I would say, if that's something you are doing, maybe have like a time limit on how long people are allowed to speak for, and have someone keeping an eye on that and getting ready to...
Or even like going around with I want to say compere, is that the word? Where, like going around with the mic, and so they can kind of control it moving on, and being a bit more managing it in that way. It's way of doing it. Yeah. Or even like giving, like maybe parents want to do it as a couple, maybe you and your new spouse want to give a speech as a couple as well, like plan it together. That can be quite cute.
And in the UK, at least, speeches often happen either before the meal or maybe after the meal, but why does it have to? Now, I would say, if you're having caterers, to make their lives easy, I wouldn't recommend trying to fit it in between courses if you're having a coursed meal, because that'll throw timings all out and they won't thank you for it. But you could maybe mix up the timing, and if you're having a drinks reception earlier on, you could include the speeches as part of that. So don't feel as though you have to stick to the rigid kind of traditional timings of the day either. Yeah,
and this is what goes for the whole video. It's keep the traditions you like, adapt the ones you to suit you better, or throw other ones out the window. It's just traditions, I think, just generally, just give you that kind of the wedding feeling of it. You know, it helps your brain recognise this is a wedding rather than just a party or some other event. But it's all about making the wedding as much you and your partner as possible, like a representation of the two of you. So you do you, is what we're saying.
That's the moral of the story. Yeah.
So we hope that's helped you sort of inspire you and help you feel like you can break free a little bit. If you've got any other sort of suggestions and ways you can maybe like modernise some of these traditions as well, drop them in the comments below to help out other viewers. Otherwise, thank you for watching. Please hit that subscribe button to see more content like this, and we will see you next Friday.